Happy morning, I'm Paige, this is the Happy Kitchen, and today we're making gluten-free green bean casserole. I'm super excited to bring this recipe to you today because when I was little, green bean casserole was my favorite on Thanksgiving. And when I went gluten-free, I was super disappointed that I couldn't have it. A couple years ago, I even tried to make it gluten-free with store-bought items. I bought store-bought gluten-free French fried onions and gluten-free cream of mushroom soup because the traditional cream of mushroom soup is also not gluten-free. And I was very disappointed. It was super lame. It was not flavorful at all, nothing like the traditional. So I'm excited to bring you this from scratch recipe that rivals the traditional. It is a little bit of extra work because everything's from scratch, but I promise you it'll be worth it. It is so good. I even tested out if we could make the French fried onions the night before, save you guys a little bit of time. That way, on the day of Thanksgiving, you don't have to fry all of those onions in order to make this, and it worked out just fine. So you can absolutely French fry your onions the night before, put them in an airtight container and store them on the counter overnight. That way they don't get super soggy in the fridge, and it worked out just fine. You could also make your soup the night before and store that in the fridge, and then assemble the green bean casserole the day of Thanksgiving super quickly if you wanted to as well. Let's get started. First up, we're going to French fry our onions. Get out a large pan, the more surface area the better, and we're going to use avocado oil today because it has a high heat temp for frying. Put a thin layer of avocado oil over at the bottom of your pan and put that over medium-high heat to get it going. If it starts to smoke, you want to turn it down just a little bit. Then we're going to thinly slice 1.5 yellow onions. Find that 1.5 is just about the right amount. Then you're going to do 1 cup of Bob's Red Mill gluten-free flour, and we're going to add some seasonings to it. 3 teaspoons of garlic, 1 teaspoon paprika, 2 teaspoons of salt, and 1 teaspoon of pepper. Make sure you mix it up thoroughly so all the spices are mixed throughout the flour. Once you've thinly sliced those, you're going to pour 3/4 of a cup of cashew milk over the top and let them soak. I turned them every couple of minutes to make sure that all the onions were getting soaked in the milk. Once your oil is nice and hot, you're going to slowly take some onions out of the milk and put them into your flour and evenly coat all of those. Then you're going to transfer into your oil. The smaller the batch, the better. You want to leave some room. You don't want to overcrowd your pan. And once they get kind of nice and golden brown, you're going to want to flip. When you pull onions out, put them over some paper towels to drain. Add more oil in between each batch or as needed. Every time you do add more oil though, make sure you allow it to come up to temperature. Don't throw your onions in right after you add in fresh oil. You want to make sure it's nice and hot. While I was working in batches, I drained the milk from the onions that were still waiting to be put into the flour mixture. That way they weren't taking on too much of the milk. You can see here some of my onions got a little bit burnt. I found that they went from being perfectly crispy golden brown to just a little bit too cooked. Some of them had a little bit of a burnt flavor, so I would be very careful, and once you put your onions in, I wouldn't do anything else. I would focus on those and watch them because they're going to come to that perfect golden brown pretty quickly, and then especially once you flip them, they're not going to take too much longer. So the 1.5 onions that we used was perfect because the few that I did burn, I was able to pull out and snack on while I was cooking, and it still left plenty for the recipe. Next, we're gonna move on to our gluten-free cream of mushroom soup. You're gonna heat up 2 tablespoons of avocado oil plus 1 tablespoon of vegan butter over medium heat. Then we're going to dice up half of a sweet onion into very small pieces. Throw your onions in once your oil has heat it up, and then you're gonna turn your heat down to just below medium. We want the onions to start going first because they take longer than the mushrooms, but we don't want them to crisp up at all. We want it to be on low enough heat that they're on a slow simmer. We don't want anything to get crispy at all. Then once your onions have browned a little bit and have started to soften and become more translucent, we're going to throw in our mushrooms. I did 3 baby Bella mushrooms, which amounted to about 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup of mushrooms, and I diced those up really small as well. Once those have sauteed for a minute, I added a couple dashes of Worcestershire sauce in, and I allowed that to thoroughly cook. The vinegar will cook out. Once you have everything really soft and nice and brown, and you can kind of see that it's starting to caramelize, you're going to add 2 tablespoons of gluten-free flour to your mixture. Whisk that all together and give it just a couple of seconds extra so that the flour can brown a little bit as well. Then you're gonna add 1.5 cups of cashew milk, half of a cup at a time, whisking as you go to combine. Then you're gonna add salt and pepper. I did about 1/2 teaspoon of each, but you can season to taste how you like it. Now it's time to assemble our casserole. Put 2 cans of green beans in your casserole dish and about half of the crispy onions that you made. You're gonna pour over the entire soup mixture and stir to combine. You're gonna bake this at 350 degrees for 25 minutes. Pull it out and add the rest of your crispy onions on top and add another 5 minutes at 350. Because I did my French fried onions the night before and they weren't quite as crispy, I did turn my broiler on high for just about 60 seconds and I stood in front of the stove. Don't go anywhere. You don't want it to burn. You just want to add a little bit of extra crispiness to the top and then you can pull it out. If you made your crispy onions this day of, this step isn't really necessary. There you have it. Delicious, amazing, creamy, gluten-free green bean casserole. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy this recipe and you make it and you get to enjoy delicious gluten-free green bean casserole on your Thanksgiving. Please subscribe, join the Happy Kitchen family. I make gluten-free recipe videos every single Friday, and right now we're smack dab in the middle of a gluten-free Thanksgiving series where I'm making all sorts of Thanksgiving food gluten-free. So please subscribe so you don't miss that, and then check out the last couple of weeks' videos if you want to see more Thanksgiving goodness. Thank you for watching. Have a happy day.